Hey guys, Dan here for BladeReviews.com, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Cold Steel Ti-Lite. This is a knife that I almost wasn't going to review. To be completely honest with you, I'm not too crazy about the overall looks of the knife, and it's kind of a one-note, kind of one-hit wonder type of blade, but what it does well, and in truth it kind of grew on me a little bit, so here we are. I'm going to do a brief Cold Steel Ti-Lite review for you. So let's start things off with some quick specifications. The Ti-Lite's got an overall length of 8 3/4 inches. It's got a 4-inch long blade and it weighs 3.5 ounces. I've got an interesting size comparison for you here. Take a look at this next to a Spyderco Endura. And if they look kind of similar in size, it's because they're the exact same length and they both have 4-inch blades, and in fact, they both weigh right around 3.5 ounces, so I think it's a pretty cool reference. And what I find even more interesting is taking a look at the two designs. You'll notice the Endura, it has such features like this enhanced thumb ramp with jimping, an ambidextrous thumb hole, a blade with a decent amount of belly. You know, they're both thin blades. You've got a handle that's been kind of refined to meet the fingers there, and you've got stuff like, you know, a 4-corners pocket clip and fully ambidextrous lock on there. The Ti-Lite, it's more of a purpose-built fighting implement, really a stabbing implement, and you don't have all the creature comforts of the Endura, which I would say is much more of a classic EDC. The Ti-Lite, more of just a classic folding dagger, and really should be purchased with that in mind. In my mind, the Ti-Lite's just too specialized to really be an effective EDC knife. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have its place or its value. So let's get a little bit further along in the review and take a look at this blade here. The Ti-Lite's got a spear point shaped blade. It's been given a hollow grind, and it also has a very large and aggressive swedge that's also hollow ground. You've got just a slight amount of belly here, and it all comes together into a pretty stout tip. The whole idea here is just to maximize penetration. I think you've got 3mm thick Aussate blade steel, and I think Aussate's just fine considering what you're going to be using this knife for. Not a lot of cutting, mostly being driven into stuff, so I think Aussate's actually a great choice since it's a very tough steel. The handle on this knife is Zytel over full stainless steel liners. You can see the liners have been given a little bit of a mirror polish. I tend to like that. You can get this with aluminum scales instead of Zytel scales, but to be honest with you, the aluminum handled version's like much more expensive, and it also weighs more, so I don't really see the benefits to doing that. My advice is just to go for the Zytel version. It seems to be holding up really well for me. Actual handle construction, you've got a closed back design, you've got screw together construction, and you've got a pretty solid handle here. You can take a closer look and see that everything is well lined up, and it's generally pretty well done here, so I like the handle construction. Ergonomics are pretty one note. You know, really, the first thing that I notice are these large quillions, and this is right where your thumb would typically go, and they're just not that comfortable. You're not going to want to dig in there and do any kind of serious cutting. You can kind of leapfrog over that and straddle the quillion a little bit, but it just kind of looks awkward. In fact, it feels kind of awkward, and I don't see myself getting a ton of work done this way. Really, the Ti-Lite, it prefers to be in a reverse grip like this. This is what it really goes for. It's a nice fat handle, so it does fill the hand pretty well like this, and it also does pretty well in an ice pick style grip too. So again, it's for being driven into stuff. The pocket clip is a stainless steel clip with a pretty high, bright satin finish to it. Probably not my first choice for a pocket clip finish, especially on a slim tactical knife like this, but hey, it does look pretty handsome next to all the other stainless steel hardware. Retention's good, and the clip is pretty functional for what it is. I had no issues with it. It does ride kind of high in the pocket, but given the many modes of deployment, I think it actually works pretty well, since my favorite way to deploy this knife is to use this quillion as a wave. Now, for those unfamiliar with the wave, it's an Ernest Emerson design, and it's a method of rapidly deploying a knife. It's actually very simple. Assume you've got the knife in your pocket, and my finger is the lip of the pocket. as you draw the knife out, it catches on this protrusion, this wave, and it just flicks it open lightning fast. So it works really well for that, and it's actually a lot of fun to wave this one off your pocket. If you don't want to do that, you've got the option of this right side only thumb stud, which is fairly smooth, and you could also use the quillion if you're like me, a lefty, to open up the knife. So you've got a few different options here. All of them are pretty good, and all of them are assisted by some Teflon washers. Teflon washers probably weren't my first choice here, but the knife is incredibly smooth, the deployment's fast. Take a look at the blade centering. Mine's dead on, so I can't really complain. I can't fault the Teflon washers here. Lockup is achieved through a liner lock, and you can see that mine is getting kind of late in the lockup department, but I have been waving the heck out of this thing. I've been really having a good time just waving this thing off my pocket, you know, maybe imitating some sweet cold steel moves from some of their video promotional material. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know, it's fun to take this thing out and just kind of screw around with it a little bit. So yeah, the lockup has kind of suffered as a result, but still very robust. There's no blade play at all, and I can't complain about the liner lock here. I think it's pretty good. Disengages easily, doesn't stick. It's a great lock. So yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of our cold steel Ti-Lite review. My final thoughts on this knife: it's certainly, for what it is, it's nicely done. If you're looking for something that's just a dedicated stabber, looking for a pig sticker or something along those lines, and you don't need anything to really EDC or use for day-to-day type tasks, then yeah, cold steel Ti-Lite. I think it's pretty well made and it'll get the job done. But if you want something that can not only work as a tactical knife, but also do some daily kind of chores, I might suggest something like the Endura, especially if you like this size. So, but that's just me. You know, I think they're both good knives. It just depends on what you're going to do with them. Alright guys, that's the review. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you have any comments or questions. Again, this is Dan for BladeReviews.com. Thanks again, take care, and I'll be back soon with another knife review.